All right, guys, welcome back to the channel here. Today, we're gonna be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart and fulfilling the mission of our company, HouseAble, where we make homeownership possible for middle America when big banks say no. And if this isn't your first time to the channel, you've probably seen some of our other videos, and I can link them up for you above, about our strategies that we allow for people to do these sorts of things, starting with the co-living model, where people rent homes by the room, ending with the lease option model, so people eventually scale up to maybe the lease option model, where they lease a home with the option to purchase it later, and then eventually into actual physical home ownership, where they own the property. We do a model called a wraparound mortgage, which is a form of seller financing, and we could link that up for you above as well. We talk about that a ton on the channel. We've also done a video in the past where we've literally shown we've opened the door for someone who started off as a lease option tenant and then eventually made it all the way up the rung into homeowner, where he now owns a property that he then bought from us as a rent to own and now owns on seller finance. In an effort to conjoin all of these great things that allow people to move up the rung from tenant to homeowner, we have a program. It's called HouseAble Path to Homeownership program. And so it starts with our PadSplit operation, scales to lease option, and then eventually owner finance to seller finance. We've seen this kind of work in reality already. We've had tenants that have lived in PadSplit properties of ours for a year plus, 6 months plus, and then eventually scale into a position where, okay, hey, they've saved enough money, they've gotten financial stability, they've lived close to steady employment for long enough to graduate from PadSplit tenant into regular tenant. And that's kind of where the story has ended for a lot of these people that we've worked with along this process. And to be a perpetual tenant for life is against the mission of our company. We want more people to own homes, because when people own things, when people own properties, they become what I like to call an invested citizen. And so the more invested citizens we have, the stronger the country is that we live in, because now people have a vested interests in the property, in the land that they own, versus a tenant who's like, hey, listen, whatever happens to this property, it doesn't matter because it's not my house. The way that you build beautiful neighborhoods, the way that you build strong, thriving communities where people look after each other is through homeownership. And so right now, if you look at one of our previous videos, I talked about Tampa specifically, and I can link it up above. People who make a median income in some of these markets around the country can barely make it by. If you're a single person and you're making a medium income in a market like, let's say Tampa, about $48,000 a year, between living expenses, taxes, miscellaneous life costs, you really can't even afford an emergency. You can't afford to, go out to eat with your friends. You can't afford to invest in the stock market and grow your financial future, because every cent that you make is literally going to fund your life, and you're just on this perpetual hamster wheel, just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning until one day the hopes and dreams of retirement kick in and you no longer have to spin your wheels, but now you're relying on the government, and it's a whole big mess that we are trying to do something to solve this actual problem. We talked about a single apartment, a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment here is an average like $1,600 a month, plus utilities, and expenses get piled and piled and piled. So the beginning of our program starts with our PadSplit strategy, also known as co-living. And what this means is people will rent a property. So we have what was a single family property, and rent that property out by the room. And on average in Tampa Bay, our average room cost is anywhere between $800 and $900 a month, paid weekly. And those payments actually get reported to credit bureaus. You don't have to pay utilities. That's covered by us as the landlords. So you save money on utilities, Wi-Fi, lawn care, cleaning the home. All of those things are covered in the actual ownership of the property. So the ownership team covers those costs. What you see is what you pay. In Tampa Bay specifically, and in most industries or most markets where this strategy is popular, and as we expand, we'll talk about that more, the average monthly rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is about double what our room rent is for our co-living properties. And that's not even including utilities. And so what that does is it actually gives people breathing room so that they can start to save their money, so that they can have a down payment or invest and then grow that money into what eventually becomes a down payment for them to become future homeowners. So from there, we go from our PadSplit strategy to our lease option strategy. So what this means, it's also called rent to own, lease with the option to buy, lease option. All of these names essentially mean the same thing. It means instead of just being a regular tenant who's just paying monthly to live in a property for its use, you also have the option to buy it at the end of the term. So what that means is we agree on a price in the beginning of the lease period, specify a specific period of time that lease is going to be good for, 2, 3 years, 1 year, whatever the case may be. And then the price and or terms of the option specify what purchasing the property will actually look like at the end of this lease period. So now people are actually on a path to own a home. They're in a single family house. Sometimes we give rent credits. We incentivize them by bringing deposits that get contributed towards their option price and so on and so forth. And what we like to do at HouseAble is we like to structure on the third leg of our Path to Homeownership program is what we call seller finance or wrap strategy. And what that means is, let's say this person who's in this lease option property has built up their reserves, their monthly income is up, they can now pretty much qualify to bring extra money or whatever the qualifications might be to get the property seller finance to them. They're now in a position to execute their option to buy and roll it over into seller finance. And with seller finance, instead of going to the bank, what we do is we take terms that we agree on as people, as individuals rather than institutions, and we agree on those terms. And that person that was here at one point and worked their way here now actually has physical ownership over a property. This progression could take a long time, a short time. It's pretty unique to everybody's situation. But our goal is to get as many people that start here, or first of all, get them here to begin with, because the bigger problem is not enough people know that this solution even exists. So solution number one is get people here. And that's what one of the things that we're trying to do at HouseAble is creating more rooms and opportunities for people to become aware that this exists and it's a strategy that might make sense for their situation. And we'll get into more of that in a bit. But we want to get them from nowhere to here. And now they're on this progression towards homeownership. Depending on their unique circumstances, they might be able to skip from here to here, or they might start here to here. But the goal of our program, when someone enrolls in it, is to evaluate where they are in the process and provide an opinion about where they best fit within that process. We've had plenty of people that start here and eventually they work their way up to here. Or we've had people that have even started here. Maybe they have $40,000 as a down payment, but maybe they have student loan debt that is hurting their debt to income ratio, or their credit is bad because maybe they missed a student loan payment. I know people who literally make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but missed a student loan payment because their auto pay was accidentally turned off and their credit dipped into the mid to low sixes. And so a person who's well qualified and can afford to buy a home suddenly can't because they don't actually check the boxes of institutional lending. And so with PadSplit's Path to Ownership program, we make all of that possible through one unique linear path that is unique for each and every person's personal circumstances. This is our mission at HouseAble. We are here to make homeownership possible for middle America when big banks say no. This is our plan to do it because, again, we want to make people invested citizens. We want more homeowners and less institutional homeowners, because the more people who own homes, the better the communities that we're going to have, the more unity that we're going to have, the more pride of ownership that we're going to have, the nicer neighborhoods and communities that we're going to have. And when people are investing in the areas, the land they live in, it makes everything around it way better. So if this is a program that might be interesting to you, I encourage you to go to houseable.com to learn more about what this might look like and put you on the path to homeownership in your own unique circumstances. If you're interested in learning of how this stuff works, maybe this is your first video that you've watched with us and you have a lot more questions than answers right now, we probably have answered a couple of them on our channel. So I encourage you to check out our channel. I'll link some of the most important videos here in the description about where you can start, or just subscribe. Check out our content, see some of our PadSplits in action, see some of our lease options and seller finances in action. Listen to some of the people that we have on our channel talk through their progression from tenant to homeowner. This is our mission. This is why we're here. We're happy that you found us. Hopefully this video provides some value to you. Hopefully if you're watching this and you think this might be a good program for you, you go to houseable.com to learn more about it. Other than that, let me know if this is something in the comments that might be useful to you or someone you know, or homeownership is a pipe dream for you and you need to figure out a way to actually make that possible for your family and bypass all of these hurdles that today's day and age is throwing at you, and move from tenant to homeowner and make homeownership possible. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Comment below your thoughts on what this program could do for you, whether you love it, hate it. I'd love to hear your feedback, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video.